Welcome to Mo Health Media. My name is Guy Danhoff. We want to thank you guys for tuning in to yet another broadcast. Today, we are joined by Dr. Patsy Carter. Patsy, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Guy.
Well, I got to tell you, we're really excited because you've been basically serving for over 30 years working in the field of child mental health. You've certainly worked for the Missouri Department of Mental Health in a variety of capacities. And basically you've been working in the inpatient, the outpatient settings, as well as both the clinical and even administrative positions. And in the last 5 years, you've been involved in a joint position with the Children's Division, providing both clinical and policy consultation on behavioral health issues. And with that, tell us a little bit more about that, how that brings us to where we're at today, as this is a broadcast with Missouri Healthy Schools.
Great. Well, thanks, Guy. Yes, and I will add that I retired from the Department of Mental Health about 2 years ago. And so now I direct the Center of Excellence in Child Wellbeing here at the University of Missouri Department of Psychiatry. And with that, for the last 10 years, I have been focusing on trauma across the lifespan, but in particular, because of my interest in children, I do a particular focus on toxic stress and trauma in children. And I think today that brings us, because we are in a remarkable time where we have some very significant factors that are merging together to increase everybody's level of stress and leading to some toxic stress. We've got issues such as COVID, obviously, that has people worried, merging that with issues around racial justice and the political tensions that are rising, the number of natural disasters that we see growing. All of this is leading to an increase in levels of anxiety and depression across our country. Some examples of this is the Federal Mental Health Hotline has seen a 1,000% increase in calls since the beginning of the pandemic. And we're seeing increases in anxiety and depression from 11% to going up to 41%. I mean, these are really significant changes in what we're seeing, and we're obviously concerned about the impact that that may have on areas such as, child well-being, domestic violence, child abuse, et cetera.
So, Dr. Carter, then how do you kind of, form an attack plan, if you would, to kind of remedy some of these situations? I mean, are there some signs that, that you can look for, or that schools can look for, or even parents? Because I would imagine you're kind of triangulating, your approach.
Well, right. Well, first off, let's think about I mentioned some of the broad issues that all of society is facing. But when we think about what our students and families are facing right now, we see increase in issues around food and hunger, food access, additional health concerns and related to COVID, experiences of loss, worrying about loved ones being sick, or the death of loved ones. People and families are dealing with financial stressors, missing people that they've normally had contact with, that kind of sense of social isolation that is causing stress in others. So, people often think that children may not experience, particularly young children, these type of stressors because they may not understand it in its fullest context. But actually, we know that even the youngest children, infants, can pick up on their caregiver's stress level. So they may not understand it, but they know that in their environment, there are high levels of stress. So whether it's a child, an infant, all the way up to adolescents, they are feeling the levels of anxiety and stress either through their own personal experiences or through picking up the sense of what their adults, their caregivers, and other family members are experiencing. So all of this is leading to levels, I mean, everybody has stress in their life, but I think what we're seeing is increasing levels of stress to where we talk about it being toxic stress. And that means basically our stress management systems are being overwhelmed, which can then lead to a number of different issues or symptoms, so to speak, or behaviors or emotions that we might see. And so you had asked me about some of those. So some of the things that we see, particularly in youth, and especially in younger children, we often see somatic complaints, kind of those headaches or stomach aches. They just don't feel good, but we really can't find a cause for that. So that's one of the common symptoms. Levels of irritability, that children are not as calm or as patient as they used to be, kind of snapping at their siblings and others in the family. You may see increasing tearfulness or episodes of crying. May not even know necessarily, again, why they're crying, but they're more on edge with their emotions. Obviously, I think we're all experiencing some sleep problems, not being able to fall asleep, waking up early, not being able to fall back asleep. Some folks may be sleeping too much. And so what we notice, if there is a change in a youth's sleep pattern or in their appetite even,
Right.
that's often an indication for concern. So changes in their energy level, they may, again, the younger youth may appear more clingy or more dependent upon their caregivers, or you may see some examples of regression. Maybe a young child who has successfully been potty trained is now soiling or wetting themselves again. So seeing that level of regression is another common symptom or sign that we can see.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And, you know, you brought up the isolation, and I can say this, both what I also do as a professor from that angle, you know, working with undergrad and graduate students that have been isolated, as well as my own 15-year-old daughter who tested negative for COVID-19, but because of exposure and the tracing, she still has to remain quarantined. And that's been a very difficult thing. And I'm saying that kind of as a parent here to you now, because you're exactly right. You know, my daughter broke down crying for about 10 minutes when she got home, because she said to me, "Hey, Dad, I did nothing wrong." And that's a very difficult thing to do. So I guess my question is now, what are some things that, you know, some tips or some strategies that parents and or schools can do moving forward when you do see these signs?
Right, right. Well, and I would say it's important to even do it before you see the signs, so that hopefully we can prevent that level
Right.
of growing anxiety and stress. So the first thing that we say for all caregivers is to help a child or a youth be calm. You have to be calm yourself.
Mm.
So, I know that can be very difficult because the parents are dealing with high levels of stress themselves, but trying to manage that. So encouraging parents to take care of themselves
Right.
so that they can take care of their children is the number one recommendation we make, and not to feel selfish about that.
Right.
And to think about that you're doing that for your children, not just for yourself, right? So taking care of taking care of yourself. Second is actually talk to your children and the
Right.
students. So whether you're a teacher or a caregiver, talk to the children. Don't shut down conversations. I know that they can be some really tough conversations, you know, talking about COVID or racial injustice, whatever it may be. That can be very, very difficult, but it's so important that we do so that they can express their feelings and know that it's okay, whatever they are feeling. And so that's the third piece is
Okay.
in having these conversations, let them express their feelings and validate those feelings for them. Make sure that they know that no matter what they're feeling, that that's okay. We don't want to dismiss their feelings or say that they're wrong. Actually say, you know, I can really understand how that may make you feel, or that must make you feel really scared, right? Or anxious. So having those open discussions can be critical. If we shut down those discussions, then that's just going to increase the youth anxiety. People may think that talking about these things actually will increase anxiety, but it's not. That's not true. Actually, talking about it can relieve it, and you can come up with different strategies about how you together can, alleviate some of that anxiety. Admitting your own concerns and that we need to be taking better care of ourselves and getting enough exercise and sleep and taking breaks. So all of those can be very important in sharing that with our children.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I know some of those things, you know, you and I talked a few days ago, and you gave me some of those tips, and I actually used them. And I can't say it's made a big difference for me as a father. So I want to say thank you to that. But I also want to bring up another issue that, you know, we keep hearing about. It's getting more attention, even in the news, and that is this. You know, we know that screen time is becoming a problem. And with screen time, there's even problems of getting the kid or the children or even the family just to move around more. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on trying to address the screen time, and with it, sometimes there's a lack of physical activity. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all concerned about, even before COVID, the amount of screen time, but certainly it has multiplied exponentially with the virtual schooling, et cetera. So I think there are a couple of recommendations that I can make in general, just about that kind of virtual schooling, and then the social media and being on their phones and iPads and laptops, is, you know, creating specific rituals, like how to start your school day virtually. And whether the teacher does that by, you know, having a community meeting or some mindfulness practice or something, but something that really starts the school day, right? And if the teacher's not doing it, the parent or the caregiver can do that by saying, okay, before we get on, let's do some breathing, or let's do a mindfulness activity. And there's tons of those on the websites across. Just Google, you know, child mindfulness, meditation, different things like that. I think it's also important that teachers and caregivers build in regular breaks, right? So whether it's every 50 minutes, you know, that may depend upon the age of the child, needing more frequent breaks, you know, the younger that they are. But during those breaks, making sure that they're getting up, moving, and those big muscle movements are really important. So we talk about taking brain and body breaks, right? So, and sometimes we need to be very intentional about that, giving them an exercise or a game or something to do. Say that, okay, now we're going to walk around the block, or we're going to go outside and jump rope for 10 minutes, or whatever it is. And obviously you want it to something to be fun, so that the youth want to engage in it. And building that in throughout the day, not only during school, but after school, if they're on the technology for their social interactions. And that's so important. I mean, even before COVID, that's the way many youth were socializing, but that's even more important now, to guard against that social isolation. But think about what maybe they could do with their friends that includes physical activity. Can they have a dance party, right? Or, you know, engage in some type of challenge with each other about doing some exercises. So again, that you're getting that movement in there, because that's going to help your mind as well as your body. And then for the end of the school day, again, make sure there's a ritual that says, this is the end of the school day. I know for myself, you know, working virtually from home most of the time, I have to say, okay, it's, you know, around 5 o'clock. Even if I know I'm going to do work later on that evening, I need to shut down my computer and say my work day is officially over. Right? Or else it's just going to extend beyond. And that's not healthy for anybody. It's not healthy for the students. It's not healthy for the family. So creating a ritual that designates the end of the school day, I think, can be very helpful. So again, we want to ensure sleep, routines and predictability, providing a lot of rituals, consistency, et cetera, exercising, being able to talk about their feelings and validating those feelings are all critical to help students during this tough time.
Well, I got to tell you, I greatly appreciate you answering that question, because in the last couple of weeks, that's been a question I've been posed with from several folks about that, as well as seeing it in the news. So with that, I was wondering if you could share your screen with us, because I know you've got some amazing resources, and I was wondering if you could, you know, share that with our viewers.
Yeah, if you can see that now, Guy, I hope.
Yeah. Okay,
good. So there's the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, and I'm telling you, there is more information on that website than you could ever read. It is specifically about trauma in toxic stress, but it has specific areas for teachers, for families, for youth, for school administrators, anybody. And so it's very specialized in talking about trauma and toxic stress. One of my favorite websites is the Harvard Center on the Developing Child. And this has a lot of information about how we build resilience in children, which I think that's very important at this critical time, to be very intentional about developing our youth social and emotional capacities.
Absolutely.
Our own center has some information on it about resilience and toxic stress and all, so I've provided that. And then I provided my email address so that if anybody has any questions, needs anything, I am happy to assist in any way. So any parent, teacher, anyone that's viewing this, if they have questions or need some additional resources, please just shoot me an email, because we all need to help each other out in these difficult times.
Absolutely. And then with that, as we kind of wrap up the broadcast, we can, I guess, let the cat out of the bag. You're going to be actually doing a webinar for Missouri Healthy Schools coming up, and maybe you could give us a little, sneak peek preview of what that's going to be about.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly see kind of maybe some questions that come up or what people are really interested in, but I think it will talk a great deal about, resilience and social and emotional capacities in youth and children, and what we can do to develop that, but also what we can do for those youth who have experienced some significant stress or trauma, how we can help them heal from that. So it'll be kind of across that continuum.
Absolutely. And guys, we'll keep you posted. One last resource that I will give to you guys is actually our own resource with MissouriHealthySchools.com. We've got some other resources too that we work with, even with DESE, that are also available to you. So between what Dr. Carter's provided, as well as, what we've got going on at Missouri Healthy Schools, we've really got you covered on a lot of really good, rich information that can really help bring down the stress levels and provide some solutions for families, for students, for even parents, because we know we're in unprecedented times. And Dr. Carter, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today on this broadcast and sharing, your insights as well as these resources with us.
Yeah, and Guy, if I could mention just one more resource.
Sure.
You mentioned it with the DESE website. DESE has a web page that's about trauma-informed schools. Mm-hmm. And there is some really good information that one of my colleagues and partners in the work with Trauma Alive and Well Communities is doing with DESE. And their resources are on that web page. So again, that's another great resource that I should have listed here, but we'll make sure that you can get that as well.
Well, Dr. Carter, we want to thank you again for taking the time. We want to thank you guys for viewing. For Dr. Carter, I am Guy Danhoff. We want to thank you guys for watching this episode of Mo Health Media. We'll see you